Hi guys, welcome back to the Blonde Book Nerd. My name is Shania and today I'm going to do my April wrap-up. So it is currently April 30th, so it's the last day in April, and I purposely waited to do this today because I was pretty sure I was able to squeak one last book in, and sure enough, I just finished it not too long ago. So you're getting everything that I finished in April. This month I managed to read 8 books. 6 of them were physical books, 1 was an ebook, and 1 was an audiobook. So let's get started. The first book I finished in April was The Huntress by Kate Quinn. This is the second Kate Quinn book. I previously read The Alice Network, which I loved, and I really enjoyed this one too. I gave it 4 stars. So this book has 3 main characters, and all of them revolve around this woman called the Huntress. During World War II, she was a really bad woman. She did some terrible, terrible things, and 2 of these main characters are hunting her. The third is actually unaware of who she is, but she's in her life. This book was a little different. It partially took place during the war and partially not, so that was really interesting. I did enjoy the characters. It wasn't, like I said, it wasn't my favorite. I did enjoy the Alice Network more, but overall this was a good read, and I will definitely be reading more from Kate Quinn. So I'm actually going to lump together the next 3 books I read because they were a trilogy and I binge read them. So I read them one after another. They were a reread for me, but it had been so long since I had read them. I really wanted to dive back into the world, and it was really like I was reading it for the first time. And that trilogy is The Infernal Devices by Cassandra Clare. I read these when they first came out, and Clockwork Princess, the last one, came out in like 2013, and I hadn't revisited them since. So I'm going to put these down, they're heavy. So I really wanted to dive back in. I recently discovered Chain of Gold came out, and I had no idea. I've been so out of the Shadowhunters universe that when this whole quarantine thing hit, I really wanted to read something completely unlike what's happening right now, and that led me back into the Shadowhunter world. So I'm not going to tell you too much about this. All I'll say is it's a prequel to the Shadowhunters series, the City of Bones one. It is set in Victorian England, London specifically, and Tessa Gray goes to meet, she gets a letter from her brother, so she travels from New York to London to meet him, and then she gets pulled into the world of the Shadowhunters. I adored this series just as much as I did the first time, and I definitely will be continuing on soon. I do have Chain of Gold now. I also need to catch up on the Infernal Devices trilogy though, so I read Lady Midnight, and that was a long time ago, so I need to catch myself back up, finish that, and then I can dive into Chain of Gold. The next book I finished was actually an audiobook, and that is A Serial Killer's Daughter by Carrie Rawson. This is a memoir told by the daughter of BTK, the Bind, Torture, Kill serial killer. He was mostly active in the 1970s. He did kill a few times after that, but he was ultimately caught in 2005, I believe. This book was okay. I gave it 3 stars. It wasn't my favorite. I was expecting a little bit more out of it, but it was also really interesting. I hate rating someone's life, someone's recount, but honestly, I didn't get as much of her feelings about, dealing with her dad as a serial killer. It very heavily talked about her faith, which is a lot of how she coped with what happened to her, which was interesting. I'm really glad she found a coping mechanism. Unfortunately, I just thought it was going to be something different. So the next book I finished was a first read, which everyone else in the world has read this, except for me, I know, and that is A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. This book is a brick. It is so big, but it was so good. I totally understand now why people say this was their favorite in the trilogy. I haven't read A Court of Wings and Ruin yet, so you never know, I might love it more, but I adored this book. 5 stars, no questions asked. I love Rhysand, I love Moore, I love the Night Court. This book was amazing. In the last 30 pages, I kept making faces, and my fiance actually kept looking at me like, are you okay? So that was kind of funny, but I really, really enjoyed this book. I will definitely be picking up A Court of Wings and Ruins soon, and I'm so sad that I waited this long to read this trilogy. The next book I read was actually an e-arc I received from NetGalley, so thank you so much for providing it to me. This book came out in February, so I am behind reading it, but I'm so glad I got to it, and that is The Sundown Motel by Simone St. James. I had previously read The Broken Girls by Simone St. James, and it was good. It wasn't my favorite. I think I might have rated it like 4 stars, so I still really enjoyed it, but Sundown Motel, 5 stars, no questions. This book is about a girl in 2017, her name is Carly. She goes to Fell, New York, because back in the 80s, her aunt disappeared without a trace while working the night shift at the Sundown Motel. Carly has now lost her mom, who is her aunt's sister, and in order to deal with it, she feels compelled to go to Fell and find out what happened to her aunt. I really related to Carly with her obsession with unsolved cases and true crime, and I loved that aspect of this book. It also has a ghost story, which Simone St. James has a way of telling ghost stories mixed with murder and thriller that it's just, you can't stop. It's so creepy. I actually read a lot of this book at nighttime, which 100% enhanced the experience. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it unless you don't get scared easily, but it really added to the creep factor, which I do think enhanced my love for this book. I really hope Simone St. James writes more in the future, because her mysteries mixed with spook is something I've always loved. From the time I was a kid, I loved spooky ghost stories and things that go bump, but also true crime. Like, it just doesn't get better than this book for me. And the final book I finished in April, I actually just finished this maybe half an hour ago, maybe 45 minutes, and that is The Quintin Sisters by Shelley Wood. This book is about the Dion quintuplets, who were born in North Bay, Ontario, or just outside North Bay, in the 1930s. They were the first quintuplets to be born alive and live. This book follows Emma Trimpani, who's a midwife assistant who attends the birth of the Dion quintuplets at the farmhouse the night they're born. The book then follows about the next 5 years of the Dion quintuplets' life through Emma Trimpani's account of being their nurse, and it depicts what happened to these girls. So ultimately, the Ontario government actually took wardship of them, and they moved them into this nursery, which was actually more like a zoo. So this big building was built across the street from the Dion home, and the girls lived there, and they were raised on such a strict schedule, and they actually had visitors coming in and observing them just living. They were forcibly taken away from their family. Their family was allowed to visit, but their parents had 5 previous children, and the government decided that they were not able to provide for them and took over. What happened to these girls is just one example of the Canadian government in the past making a decision about the well-being of children and taking them away from their family, deciding they know best. This is a really interesting part of history. It's awful, but it's so important to talk about because they were treated so poorly. What happened to them, they were exploited for money just because there was 5 of them. It was awful. That being said, I did really enjoy this book. It wasn't perfect. I do have a few things that I didn't quite like. The ending I wasn't a huge fan of, if I'm being completely honest. So my Goodreads rating is 4 stars. I was thinking maybe somewhere between 3.5, 4 stars. I do recommend this book. It kept me turning the pages. I flew through it in about 2-3 days. Like, it didn't take me long at all, and I did really enjoy it. So I do recommend you pick it up. Okay, that is it. Those are all the books I read in April. I'm really hoping May is also going to be a good reading month. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you stick around. I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.